Alright folks, here we are on Loopy and live performance, getting it dialed, latency, all that type of stuff. So first thing on the right here, top right, hamburger menu, system settings, and let's check the buffer. 128 I think is the sweet spot, and a lot of other people do. 64 is good. Some people, they need that 64 to get it just really tight. I think you can get away even with 256. It's barely noticeable, but it is like things kind of come in a little late. 512, no way. 32, usually your system is not going to be able to handle it. This is an M5 iPad Pro, the entry level, 256, 9 cores, and I don't think I would do 64 given what I have, so I'll show you all the stuff I have here. It's a lot of stuff. You can see there my DSP is just chilling here low, right? So when you click on this, I don't know if some people don't know, but if you can click on their DSP thing here. What I'm talking about is this little, it's in the, depending on where you're at, it's at the bottom right, and it'll give you a little info about what's going on here. And I don't think this is like, the gold standard info, but it's nice to have, and just to see if there's a problematic plugin. You see the DSP's up here at 43, right? And you can just see if there's anything that's like spiking or causing issues. I've gone through this many times, that's why everything seems pretty chill for me, and I'm not having any issues with any plugins. And I've troubleshooted a lot of plugins. Some things are not, you just can't use them live, they're just not reliable enough. But anyways, this is a good indicator, and it'll show you how you can find problematic plugins. Oops. So there's that. I'll show you what I have going on here, and then I have to go into some, so we'll start from the back here. I just have this set up here to clear all loops, stop all clips, mute all sends, which will lower some DSP. If you're like, live performance and your iPad starts to thermal throttle, this is like a nice one to have. You can also turn all the effects off. It's like really thermal throttling and you're like just trying to hold it together. It's nice to have some buttons like this to lessen the DSP. If you have an older iPad or something and you're in a performance and it's hot out, it'll definitely thermal throttle. And so these kind of things are good to have on the fly. Mute mic inputs if it starts feeding back. The mixer view. That's a good way to quickly deactivate plugins too. Save tempo over here. So that's a good thing to have. There's just some more loops. I just kind of have it like basically cloned, and then I have some MIDI clips if I want to use those. Here is my instrument switcher, where I have all these so I have all these instruments, AV3 instruments, right? So just like different stuff I might want to use. And then I have these widgets here, this dial widget, which some of the AV3 instruments will let you have access to them, so you can change presets on the fly, which is nice. So this is going to give you like a really quick way to change presets. And then the way I have this set up is it'll when I click one of these boxes, right? Let's say I want to use the whirly. All right, so I'm going to click it. It's gonna actually mute this input, because what it does is it mutes everything, which is what I want. If I was playing the piano anyways, I would want my input muted. So I'll show you that, and you can just watch down here. All this changes, and so now we have the piano ready to go, the whirly, right? And we can change presets here. Okay, and the presets changed. I think in a later set, I labeled all this stuff. Yeah, I think I have a newer set that I labeled all this stuff. But anyways, yeah, you can get in there and you can just go on the widget and you can label that, right? And you can just type in here, you know, right? And then when you click off of here, it'll say Whirly and it'll still show you the preset. And obviously you can change the color. Anyways, I think a lot of people who are watching this would know that kind of stuff, so I don't need to go over that. And then the way the preset switching goes, I won't go into all that, but basically you just get in here and it switches. It's a switcher, right? Action switch, right? And then it mutes and unsolos it. So that's how that's set up. Like there's, obviously there's more to it, but I don't want to get too in the weeds with all this. So yeah, basically I can just, and when it mutes the rest of them, so that lowers the DSP, right? So that's important. You want all these muted so the DSP can be lowered and it's not going crazy. So that's important, right? And the next page, I have a mixing page, which is fun. And a lot of this is just predicated on this these RRS plugins, this Red Rock Studios, which I really like. This is the RRS EQ3, really cool plugin. I recommend it for sure. Zero latency, which is important. I'll go into that. So this has the air band, which is like you kind of need. So air band gain, I just, I go over here. So it's all ready to go. And so like if I'm in a live performance, I can just like be like, oh, well, there's way too much bass. So okay, I'll turn down, 160 hertz, or I need a little top end or something. I turn up, 2500 or whatever. And also there's harmonics and there's output. And so this mixing page basically has, and I've showed this in another tutorial, but this mixing page just has everything ready to go. I got a Pro Q4 ready to go. I got an exciter also by RRS. This is also zero latency. This thing's nice. Adds a little color, and I just have everything ready to go. And then this is a really important one because this is on my master. And so obviously in a live performance, you don't want to be peaking. You don't want to be your feed to the house be peaking. So you want to make sure you have a limiter of some sort, a zero latency limiter. And this is one of the only ones that I've found is this, also Red Rock Studios. And then so I have this set. It's actually set to -3 dB, 0. Right there. You can see there. -0.3. All right. So that's where I like to be. And then I have just like a LUFS, just so you know like what's going on with your loudness. Right. So that's a good place to be. I think this is a sweet spot. You don't want to be coming out too hot from your hardware into the mixer, into the front of house. So this to me shows me that, okay, I'm not too hot, I'm not too low, everything's copacetic. All right. And yeah, then I just have these are some master effects that I have going on. All right, so that's how that goes, and those are all also latency free, and I'll show you how I tested that in a minute. But what I have is Koala seems to be the best one in my opinion, and I just have that set up like that. And then I have Tornado. Tornado's great. Tornado just takes a little more fiddling with, I feel like, but you can use the dictator, which is kind of crazy because then you can see how it just like does all this crazy stuff. If people that know Tornado know what's up, but if you don't have it, that's why it's just, so it's really powerful. It's a really old effect, but man, it really does. And there's so many effects in here. You can just do whatever. So that's a good one to have. I like the Koala because the Koala just, once you're done with it, then it's off. And the tornado doesn't have that effect. So you got to make sure it's in this corner and off. But it seems to be pretty easy to do that. So yeah, and then one important thing I think is to have an EQ and a little channel strip on every instance of your input. Wherever your loops are going to sit here. So I have this CH strip, which I really like. This one is good. Like, I've tested a lot of this stuff, like the RRS, the Red Rock Studios. They're coded really well, and I haven't had problems with any of the RRS stuff. And also, like, I'll show you just what I'm talking about. Like this, I've used this like so heavy before, and it seems like it's just coded really well, and it just works great. So just like all the Red Rock Studio stuff, I kind of trust. That's why I have it. Like everything on my master is like Red Rock Studios, because it just seems to be there. The way that they have everything coded is just, I don't know, it works well. And so, like, it's kind of seems like a lot, but to dial in your mix, you want to have everything. So everything here also has a compressor with this channel strip. So this is like an EQ here, and then compressor here, and that's really all I'm using out here. I'm not using the side chain. And then this is just a good way to control what's coming out of each channel, each color group. And so I got a little extra EQ there, and then I got a Loopy EQ for like a quick dialing in stuff, and that's how that goes. And so that's on every channel. And I've noticed, like, you can go back in the DSP and you can see that I have a bunch of those CHS. Here they are, and they're obviously coded pretty well, because they're not just sitting there idle doing anything. So that's for me, that's really good to see. I don't want to see a plugin that I'm using a lot idle doing stuff. So it seems that everything seems to be behaving pretty well. Obviously, I've vetted this out, and I know that it's like, any plugins that were acting funky, like, I went in here and I'm like, all right, no, I can't have that. So like even Pro Q4, it's just sitting there at 2 or 3, which I'm fine with, because I need that, because it's like doing some heavy lifting with the dynamic. It's doing a dynamic EQ. All right, so that's what I wanted to cover here within the set. And then obviously everyone's going to do their own kind of set and do whatever they want. But one of the really important things is, how did I figure out what plugins were zero latency? So like basically everything I'm using is zero latency, except for a couple things, like some pitch plugins that I have. And there's no way really to tell in Loopy what like what the latency is. I guess there's like a roundabout way to do it that kind of works, but it's a kind of convoluted way. So I just want to show you guys this one. So voices cause a little bit of latency, right? So that's just, I know that. And how do I know that? Well, I know that by going to another program, AUM. So I'm going to switch out of this and go into AUM. If you don't have AUM, I feel like a lot of people do, but if you don't, it's almost worth getting it. I think it's like $20, $10 on, like, Black Friday or whatever. But it's almost worth getting it just for this if you're only going to use it for this. So I'm going to switch out of this. Your audio is going to drop, and then I'll get back in here. All right, here I am in AUM. Let's just turn this up a little bit. Okay, so AUM here, and I'm going to drop on all these guys. And so what do I have? So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you all how latency is being affected. But anyway, so what do I have? I have a barricade. These are all important here because these are going to go on the master. So barricade, tone boosters, it's a good limiter, right? And then I have that CL1 I showed y'all, which is great. There's the knock clipper, which is good. It was free like a few days ago. And then we have Grand Finale, Clev Grand, which is a good like just like a good mastering plugin. You got all these like presets and stuff. It's pretty cool. So how would I know the latency on here? So I go up here to where it says DSP, right in this area, and then I click on it, and you can see AUM is gonna give me some info, and I go to the node statistics over here, and it's gonna show you the DSP load of everything, which is cool, and CPU cores that you're using, stuff like that. And if you click over here on latency, it's going to show you what plugins are, causing latency. Grand Finale, 23 milliseconds. So you're not using Grand Finale live. That's not going to be the one to use live. Barricade 2.7, which it's right on the threshold. Like, I have used it live before, but I've switched over to the CL1. But if that's what you got, I think it'll be fine. It'll just a tiny, tiny bit. But the Grand Finale, no. And so, yeah, this is a lot of good information here in AUM. And if the plugin doesn't cause any latency, it won't register here. I'll show you. So only one I have engaged here is the CL1. Let me go back here and go to node statistics, latency. There's no latency anymore. The CL1 is not creating any latency. It's the only one engaged. And the not clipper also does not create any latency. So that's good to know. So if you have either one of those, you can use those on your master, because that's really, obviously, people that play live, they know that they need some kind of clipper or limiter on the master. And so, yeah, that's how you do that in AUM. AUM is a cool program, even if you're just using it for that, but it's also cool for a lot of other things if you're not familiar with it. All right. Okay, we're back in loops. All right, so I think that's it. I think that's what I wanted to show you. Then I just want to talk about like Apple and the AI thing that they're kind of maybe jam into iOS 27. I'm here on iOS 26, and I think I'm just gonna like stay like locked in with that and just get the last iteration of iOS 26. Because I don't know what the AI is going to do. It might just like run in the background. It might not. I guess I'm going to have to see. But this is a newer iPad. Like I said, it's an M5 Pro, and it'll be fine. But if you're using like an older iPad, a lot of people use M1s, which have been great. And I don't want to like throw any shade on anyone using an M1, because Apple just like raised their prices and stuff. But an M1 has like the single core speed is like not so good anymore. Like even the A16 iPad 11 has faster single core, and single core is really going to be like a key factor for live performance, and just the plugins using single core for like a lot of stuff. Like and I don't think Loopy really utilizes like all the cores. And I don't know, it seems like in the iOS ecosystem, they just haven't like figured that out to use all the cores and everything like that. I know that Cubasis has like a multi-core activation thing, but basically what I'm getting at is single core is really important, and you're going to want to make sure whatever iPad you're using has good single core. And as like these iOSs keep updating, and if you want to update it, I'm just going to stay on this because everything's working fine, and I don't know if I'm really trying to use this iPad for anything but music mainly, just a little bit of art. So like I said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And especially when they're going to start like doing all this like AI stuff. So when basically what I'm saying is as the iOS is like start to become more like RAM intensive, like this has 12 gigs of RAM, which is I think kind of what you need now. I think 8 is not enough almost, unless you have a really like more chill like setup. With a setup like this, which has like all these plugins, which I feel like I could probably make this a little leaner, but I feel like it's kind of like what I need and what I want. And it's working great. But I think this is kind of like my limit. I don't think I'm going to go, like, if it's going up to 50 CPU, that means like that the iPad is going to thermal throttle quicker. So in a live performance setting, it's really not efficacious to like keeping the iPad cool. And, so having these like newer devices with the faster single core, it's just going to be like a better experience. And unfortunately, it just seems like Apple is kind of like into this planned obsolescence. And it might be just like the older tech, when things keep updating, so like the M1 iPad, I don't know like what iOS we were on when that came out, whatever, like 15 or something, I don't know, but now we're wherever we're at, 26, and all the weird things that they did. But what I'm saying is that if your iPad, like, it's potentially, like, if your iPad is like somewhere where you want it to be, and you have it dialed, you might just like not update your OS anymore unless you're on a newer device, like something in like the last few years. And this is just kind of speculation. It's kind of subjective. So take it with a grain of salt. But that's kind of where I'm at with it. I think I'm just gonna, if I need another device for media, then I'm gonna use something else. Like I got the like 8.7 inch like Samsung tablet thing. That's just like, I use that for media, and I don't really want to be wasting my time on watching movies on an iPad with like this like screen is like super nice. It's just like starts to be addictive. I'd rather just be using this for making music and playing and having fun and art. So anyways, that's my 2 cents about that. But I think it is an important thing to consider, because if you are like on an M1 and it's like iOS 27, and it's like, I've heard a lot of people in the Loopy forums say that their M1s are starting to act weird and when they used to be fine, and they have a good a good interface, and Loopy Pro seems to be pretty legit. But there's all these things that can break when the OS is always updating. So like I said, do your thing, but it might be good to just have an iPad if you're serious about live performance, to just keep it at whatever one is working good, and you've tested it and it's all good. Because at this point, like, I know like all these plugins are working good. I'm not having issues with them. Some of them crash here and there or whatever, but like everything is like pretty all good. So like, I'm not gonna update my OS and then all of a sudden something's not working. So it gets tricky because you want to, it's like the newest thing and all that stuff, but ultimately I just want to have a good live performance. So there's my rant at the end here. I hope this was a good, informative thing for you, and yeah, have fun, make music, vibe, enjoy life. Peace.